welcome to another episode of Tigers, blah, 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 with me, Luke Flanagan, and my co-host is Rich Walker, who's here. Hello.
Oh, then. All right.
We did say that this may be a bit of a tricky game, Fleetwood, and it's proved to be. We were right, weren't we?
Yeah. All too right.
All too right, unfortunately. A few things before we get started, then we'll do the good, the bad, and we'll talk about some current affairs stuff, I think, before we preview the Rochdale game, Rich, which we've discussed, haven't we?
Yeah.
Big thanks to Hull City Ladies and Danny Johnson, who's their marketing director, who sponsors us. They didn't have a game at the weekend, and I'm not sure if the one coming up is also cancelled, because I think they've had some positive COVID tests in their camp, both reserves and first team. So it may be a couple of weeks before we can get back to that. But any updates I'll share through the Tigers blah social media anyway. So I hope all's all right with obviously both camps there. The other thing is obviously Fan Hub. I've got an update on that, Rich. It's supposed to be a month or 2 months away. They did an announcement today about the app. So they said they were going to launch it at the start of the season.
Which season?
Good question. I think basically because you can't have fans in stadiums, they were going to coincide it with October the 1st. Because originally we were going to see some fans, weren't we? That was how the plan was supposed to go. And I don't think there's any point in doing that, because part of the thing is you have to go and follow your team to get the reward points to build upon the app. So,
so it's not necessarily like is it the Football League who've got one themselves with Sky, where it's like you just have to check in. We could be watching at home.
I think it's very much supporting it, like, because I think you can clock up the miles that you've travelled to see your team and stuff, and you get more rewards like that. So it is a good idea.
Rewards for the fair weather fans.
No. Definitely supporting the people who go home. Well, like yourself, if you added up all the hours that you'd spent travelling up and down country seeing City, you'd have an awful lot of points on that app by the sound of it. But
I don't do it for rewards.
No, but it'd be nice to have a little side thing, wouldn't it? I mean, the reward is you get free points.
City AFC.
Yeah, that's right. Silverware, we don't care. So obviously that's just a quick update with that, but follow Fans First. It's hashtag Fans First, and it's Fan Hub on Twitter, so have a look at them. And then we've got our Patreons. We've got Mike San, Aaron Bell, Rich Fleming, Dan O'Neill, Aaron Brown, Ewan Jones, and Danny Nicol. And it's Aaron Bell this week. And again, I can't find him on Twitter on my feed, so he's going to have to follow me, and I'll get the mug and stuff sent out. So, without further ado,
have to get an email address sorted.
Well, we do have one, because it's just my own one that I've linked to all the accounts. But yeah. Because if you go on the Fan Hub thing, the contact details is my email, because that was originally what they asked for. So then it links us to the social media apps that we've got and the Patreon and everything. So anyway, give us a shout and we'll sort it from there. Right.
Has it made Australia the other one yet?
Well, I haven't got an address. I've added Alex on Facebook today, actually. So I should be able to have some update next week on that one. But yeah, well, I pass over to you for the first good, don't we? Because I usually start by saying, right, Rich, I've talked for ages, now you talk for a bit.
Doesn't really make sense today, though, because I think you picked the only true good that could have come out of the Fleetwood game.
Yeah, I picked the Keane Lewis Potter.
Yeah, I think we should start by talking about Keane Lewis Potter.
Yeah, it could have been so different, couldn't it, if they hadn't flagged for offside? I mean, what a finish.
It was tight, wasn't it?
It was tight. And, if there was VAR and all of that, you could have said, oh, well, whether he was or he wasn't, it doesn't really matter now, does it? But the fact that the way he brought Batty's ball down, cut inside and hit it, that was, I mean, who else would do that we've had? I mean, that's maybe a Grzycki shot style. Like I remember against Millwall, he had a free kick where he hit from about there and it went in.
I know. That Millwall one was decent, wasn't it? I remember having a bit of a chat with a Millwall fan after that game, with saying that he tried to cross that, but it's like, it was Grzycki, he'd shoot from anywhere.
Well, yeah, that's why he had such a poor shot to goal ratio, because he did just shoot every time, and he had no left foot.
The greedy git. I mean, we loved him,
Oh
but
yeah,
he did play for himself.
absolutely
Anyway,
not knocking him, but
that's besides the point. We don't want
yeah,
to talk about last season.
yeah,
That's the mantra, isn't it?
yeah.
I'll be coming on to that a bit
I'm
later.
sure you will be. It's interesting that, wasn't it?
Yeah,
It was.
yeah. The reaction to it was very interesting as well. I thought
Yeah.
from
Um,
City fans.
but yeah, if we'd have had a bit, if the linesman hadn't flagged offside, Eds would have properly been up there with that goal, and you never know what would happen with that. But I mean, the other thing, Lewis Potter puts everything into every performance. It's one of the things that I've always liked about him. And the other thing was as well, Elder was having a torrid time down that left-hand side in the second half, particularly.
Yeah.
And it was Lewis Potter who was making the yards back and breaking play up to stop it being 5 potentially. So even though we were, dead and buried by them quick goals in the second half, I still thought Lewis Potter's effort was there, and he was trying to make sure he did double up on the men. Because I mean, that the winger for Fleetwood just tore us a new one, didn't he? Really.
Well, he did, but he had so much space to be able.
That was it. I mean, they was pushed so high up that it was basically like, cheers, lads, I'll just run into space over here, because our fullbacks didn't learn, did they?
No, and I mean, Emmanuel came out of it, I think, with greater credit.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think he's got the power to get back.
Yeah, I mean, we'll speak about that a little bit more later on, because we may speak about the defence in the bad section.
Potentially.
Potentially.
Who knows?
Can you imagine if we didn't
happen?
Speak about the defence as a negative after that?
To be fair, there's a lot of negatives we could have talked about. And again, I don't just want to now go all negative and go, right, everything's shit now, because that's not the case. And I'm sure we'll link to the social media reaction later to that as well. But
yeah, I mean the important thing is that it's all, it needs to be put in context. And with the season still developing, we don't know what that context is yet.
Yeah, he had a big part to play in the goal as well, did Lewis Potter, because obviously he's put Wilkes through. And
yes.
Wilkes, obviously, a good save from the keeper, and then there comes Honeyman, right place, right time, which is a nice link into yours, I would say, because you wanted to talk about Honeyman.
Before we talk about Honey Esther...
Honey Esther!
I'm glad that you mentioned the equaliser. And the one thing that I wanted to touch on, and it's not really a City issue, I think it's a wider football issue, and specifically like the coverage of football. I was really interested how Sky approached that goal in their kind of analysis of it, immediately afterwards.
I'm very interested in what Sky have to say. A lot when Lee Hendry, you mean?
Oh God, he was awful, wasn't he? But everything was a penalty. And Ched Evans runs into his defender with his elbow, and he's like, "Oh, that's a definite penalty." The first one's a definite penalty, but the second one, Evans has initiated the contact. It's like he did the same thing both times round. Like, what are you talking about?
Absolutely, it's 6-1.5, doesn't it? The ref was right to go. What can I give there? Just play on, lad. Stop being stupid.
It was clever. I mean, if he gets a penalty, it's clever strike play, but in no way was it as much of a penalty as they were making out. But what I was going to say with the breakdown of Honeyman's goal, they're still looking to pick officials up on marginal offside decisions. Yeah. Like, they were looking at
see if Wilkes was offside, which none of the Fleetwood players claimed, and it's like they are stuck in the VAR thing of let's check every little thing of the goal.
It's like stopping to check if one of Wilkes' pubes was offside.
I know it's like we're not watching rugby league, mate. You don't have to. You don't have to go to the screen for everything just to make sure, because it's so fast you can't see it. Like,
have we learned nothing from VAR and the kind of ridiculous application of the offside laws that we've got now? Because that's the reason why we have VAR, and it's kind of, to the letter of the law, cut and dry interpretation of offside is that referees are under such scrutiny from television coverage that these decisions are debated.
I don't think
absolutely nothing in that.
No, there
and
wasn't.
I just thought it was really interesting. It's like
I think it's
they're
that they are
very,
stuck.
very
They're
quick.
stuck in to say, "Oh well, maybe that's marginal. Should that stand?" It's like they
Yeah,
love a talking point. It's like
controversy. They're very
talk
quick.
about the goal. Talk about Lewis Potter's run and ball through. Talk about
Yeah,
George Hunter being there at the right place at the right time. Because who else would
yeah.
have been
Talk
there?
about the footballing aspect of it,
It
but
just yeah.
they're so quick to try and pick these things up. But they're really. I mean, Jamie Carragher went off on one, didn't he, about this penalty decision in the Tottenham Newcastle game? I think
Yeah,
that was it.
yeah. I mean, that was a
And
farcical penalty,
it was,
admittedly.
it was. But what I'm going to say is that they're criticising VAR for applying the
It's
laws
not
in
VAR
those
itself;
ways.
it's those laws that
But
have been made, isn't it?
yeah, but then they're creating they're creating the environment that allows that to happen because they're then nitpicking
Mm,
ridiculous things like that, where
mm.
it's like this
I hate
nobody's
when they
looking at
I hate
it.
when they get the fucking ruler out and start going.
Yeah,
Oh, it's just like if you're not sure, just fucking play advantage. I remember when we were kids and it was fucking daylight between the player. Do you know what I mean?
yeah. I mean, you could have a foot and like a trailing foot, and that'd play you off onside and whatever.
If somebody's hand's offside, it's like we can't fucking score with his hand, can he? So
Yeah, I mean, to me as a fan, I want to see more goals in games.
of course we all do, don't
Um,
we?
yeah, so things like that, and it's a minor issue given the context of the goal in the game, and it maybe didn't wasn't something that everybody else picked up on, but I just thought it was interesting
I mean,
that
it was
in the climate where we're all so
obsessed.
everybody's of the
Yeah.
mind that VAR is like, and especially in its interpretation of offsides, the law of the offsides and the way that VAR is
Mm.
used to apply that. We're all pretty unanimous in that it's not right,
No.
but the coverage is not reflecting that. And I thought that was interesting. Even at our level, it's like, is there something there we can talk about? I appreciate they've got to get, talking points in the game and their
Mm.
coverage, but I just think they're going about it the wrong way, spoiling it. It really is.
Mm. I mean, that's the
But
first
anyway,
first time we've watched City on Sky since we won at Middlesbrough back in July,
yeah, and, for the most
and
part, I enjoyed being able to watch it with
multi
multiple
cameras. Yeah,
cameras.
that's what I was going to say.
And,
It's like it did spoil the fact that we could have another replay, which is not just one camera from top of West Stand.
yeah,
You know,
yeah, and some people might think that I'm wide of the mark on that opinion.
it's all
But
opinions are exactly that. I mean, that's if you felt that, you've got your reasons to say that. It's not that you're just plucking out of nowhere. You
yeah,
genuinely
I
felt
just
that.
thought it was interesting. It's just interesting that we've created this climate where we need something like that,
Mm.
but we're not aware of what the cause was. And it is in things like that where it's like, is there an offside in this very, very tight marginal decision? Like,
Gives
give
a
it a
fuck,
chance.
mate. Talk about the goal, not
Yeah,
whether it should stand.
yeah,
But I mean,
yeah.
obviously, your plus is Honeyman. So
It was, yeah, yeah. I mean, there's a pretty big caveat to that plus, given that he made such an egregious error.
yeah, but look at how many goals and assists he's been involved in the start of the season. You can't just say, "Oh, he's shit now," because I mean, I'm not saying
No,
that you would say that, but people were going, "Oh yeah, I told you Honeyman was shit," and it's like, are you
yeah.
ever happy, you lot? Fucking hell, are you ever happy?
And it's one of those things where he's probably only come out as a positive because there were so few
Yeah,
on the night.
I understand that, but
But he scored the equaliser, so I mean you've got to give him a tick for that.
hmm,
And the other thing that I liked about him, and we spoke about this in a previous chat, was that he's showing a kind of responsibility and maturity to his game this season that he wasn't able to exhibit
hmm.
last year for whatever reason, lack of opportunity or uncertainty of place in the team. But he never went missing, and I felt
No, he always showed for the ball, like
yeah, he
always.
did.
He always did that. He was trying to get the game by the scruff of the neck, and that's probably why he made that mistake because there was so little movement in front of him. He was like, "Right, I'll pass
Yeah,
it back in," and oh shit, I've underwritten it. And he was trying
yeah,
his hardest to get fucking back to get that. He just didn't get there.
yeah.
He
So
didn't stand still and just wave his arms about and blame somebody else like Device would have done, in my opinion. You know, we were
yeah,
playing. It was a stupid ball to play, but he'd be the first one to admit that. He was pretty brave to come out and be the one person who was speaking to the media at the end. I know he's the captain.
well, I mean that's yeah, yeah.
He is the captain, but he's made that
He's
mistake.
just not he's just not got his head up. But then, I mean, the way that he's received the ball off the throw,
Hmm.
you could almost look at it and say like,
Why is he getting it there?
yeah,
No,
a
yeah.
little bit. Emmanuel's kind of played him into trouble by giving him it
He
there.
has a little, and it's dodgy. It's a dodgy pitch. With the weather like it was to try and play,
Yeah,
a
so
pass like
I'm not
that. But
not trying to make excuses, but if you look at it, and there is a particularly interesting replay of it, that he's given the ball from the throw-in, and he takes a very heavy touch, but then there's nothing on around him. Even if he controls that, he's instantly under pressure. So he's almost played into trouble. And the centre backs aren't in anywhere near the right situation to try and take that off him. And Elder was pushed so high up the pitch
it really
that he
was.
couldn't come round
It was
to
like we were
cover.
playing with wing backs.
Yeah, and that's maybe another thing that we could talk about is the lack of cover that they were afforded by the midfield. It's wide open spaces at times. But anyway, this is a positive, and I thought, Honeyman again must have been unlucky to miss out on the player of the month.
I mean, who did get player of the month? I didn't see because I wasn't interested really. But was it an Ipswich player? I want to say it was an Ipswich player.
Their manager won manager of the month, didn't they?
Maybe it was a Lincoln player then. I don't know.
Yeah. But we'll look that up.
But I mean, if anyone did deserve it, it was Honeyman because he'd been involved in what 50-60% of our goals, whether scoring or assisting. So
yeah, I'm just enjoying his. Like I say, there does seem to be a maturity and a responsibility to his game in terms of how he relates to his teammates and his defensive responsibility, but he's also playing with a freedom around the striker. I think he missed having a focal point.
He missed having McGuinness there, didn't he?
Yeah, I mean, definitely.
This was one thing that it kind of grated on me a little bit, and it is kind of linked to Honeyman, but people are having a go at Honeyman, but he can't do the same job when Wilkes is there because Wilkes is a different type of striker. And what you've got there is people going, oh, well, he was cross against Leeds. Why was he shit against Fleetwood? It's like, well, you clearly don't understand football because they didn't play the same way. We very much played on the break against Leeds, didn't we? When we went forward with purpose. Leeds had most of the ball, and they were always going to have. But Fleetwood took it to us proper. They were all over us, weren't they? They were high pressing us. They were proper.
I don't like saying things like they wanted it more, but I think they had greater desire. Particularly in that second half, they really did boss us.
I mean, Barton Joey Barton's a shithouse bastard, changed my mind, went off last week, but he obviously knows how to get his team. He's gone, this lot think they're fucking big time, this lot, let's fucking crop them down. And it was first minute, mate. First minute, Wilkes was having shoves in the back, and it was trying to intimidate him, and it worked.
Yeah, I mean, even like somebody like Glenn Whelan, 36 years old.
Oh, mate, I cannot stand that fucker.
To being the biggest. No, but I mean, he annoyed me, like doing stuff like kicking the ball away after conceding a corner and kicking the crap out of players in midfield.
Yeah, but you see, if we'd have had Smallwood in there, it wouldn't have had a shout, and that was what we missed as well, wasn't it?
The desire and application that he showed to get on top and physically dominate, and that was one of the other things. They had a very experienced midfield pairing, and they were all over us.
Yeah, Batty made that amazing pass for Lewis Potter when it should have counted, and actually it wasn't game for him, was it?
It wasn't his night at all.
So, I mean,
I know we were talking about a positive in Honeyman. It's like I say, a qualified positive because there were so few to choose from, and there's maybe only one nugget of positivity in that. But I am just enjoying the way that he is showing, that maturity in his game. I think there's more to come from him.
And it must have done something right because you've got him on the new away shirt. So
that was an impulse decision. My free new away shirt.
Yeah, love that. I've ordered mine.
To say no peel at present.
I've ordered mine and I've ordered Theo's.
All right.
So I'll be picking them up whenever they email me because I ordered them for click and collect. So I didn't want to have to go in town because obviously with a newborn, time is sparse as to when I can get out, and I don't want to be queuing and I don't want to be messing about. I want to go in, pick it up and go, which I probably wouldn't have been able to do because, to be fair, I might have seen you if I'd have gone today, but and that'd have been something positive, but I don't really want to be wasting loads of time in traffic because it seems to be that everywhere in Hull currently is gridlock because they decided to put roadworks every fucking area everywhere. just around me, there's about 4 road closures, and then that all obviously backs up from town into East Hull, and getting anywhere is just an absolute nightmare.
Yeah.
So.
I've heard it's bad on Anlaby Road as
Well,
well.
yeah, it's bad everywhere. They seem to have gone, do you know what, lads? Let's just do all the roadworks at once. Let's not stagger it. We're even doing it on. They're not even doing it on Castle Street as well, and it's just anyway. Sorry.
You want to get on your bike? Try out these new bike lanes. They're great.
I'm sure they are. No fucker seems to use them.
Well, I'm using them. I'm having a great time.
I bet you are. I got to work in record time. Sorry for all these international listeners, by the way. We're just seeing as like have a right go about.
It's local colour. It's local colour.
Yeah. Speaking of internationals, we did have a new addition to the countries this week, and it wasn't Chad. I know you really, really want us to have listeners in Chad.
I'm dying for a listener in Chad.
But no, it was Italy.
I don't know why. It's just a great country, isn't it? What a name Chad. For a country.
Love that. It was Italy anyway. We've got listeners in southern Italy.
Oh, okay.
So, Forza Tigers. There you go. Yeah. That's probably the end of the positives.
Yeah, I'm struggling. I mean,
it wasn't.
You could say Ingram. He made a couple of decent.
He did keep the score down, but he was at fault.
There were also parts where he was badly at fault. So interesting. I mean, I'm off social media at the minute, so I didn't see the reaction to the goal. But I mean, maybe you could tell me, would the reaction have been a bit different if George Long had conceded
massively. It just seems to. I mean, I'm glad Ingram seems to be having a good season so far, and long may it continue. I'm not particularly against George Long, but Ingram took his chance and he had 4 clean sheets in a row.
I want them both. I'm
not against any City player. I don't know why people seem to be. I mean, obviously, owners and manager is aside. You people have their own opinions on that. That's fine. But if someone pulls on a City shirt, I don't want to be bagging them. I want them to do well. Whether it's Long or Ingram in net, but
I mean, I suppose the other thing is whoever was in goal, they'd
have had a torrid time. But then again, if you'd have put Long in and they would have lost 4-1 as well, they'd have gone, say, should have played Ingram. And it's always that player who doesn't play becomes a better player, like you said a couple of weeks ago. They automatically become a better player because they weren't associated with a shit performance.
Yeah.
So
I'm not suggesting that George would have done any better.
No.
By the way,
no. I think Ingram's a decent goalkeeper, and I think there was there's a few tongue in cheek things, like that Mr. Clean Sheet thing where he's in bed. that did make me laugh, but it's always
images that precede unfortunate events as well.
It's always going to be. Yeah,
I did see that. I think someone sent me a screenshot of that. It was very funny.
Yeah. I mean, the reaction was just. It seemed to be split into 2 camps for me. It was those people saying, well, hey, we're back, and the rest of them basically saying, look, where have you lot been? All these negative Nellies, basically. All these time we've been on here, and then the first time people actually fucking watch us because no one's paid for a stream for the last 4 weeks and we've won, you couldn't start watching on Sky and everyone starts to lose and everyone jumps on the bandwagon and thinks it's July and we've been relegated again.
Everybody went a bit mad, I understand.
Yeah, and it's just, I understand why you've got rid of social media. I mean, I can't do that. Just for the way, like, if I didn't have anywhere to put anything that I actually try to write with journalism that I am trying to do, it wouldn't be very good.
I'm still checking in like 5 minutes every day. I'm just not
I get it. I get it, because there are things where, I mean, it gets to the stage where I just mute words so I don't see tweets of things that annoy me. That's kind of how it, particularly those how it started, how it's going bollocks.
Oh God,
they really annoy me. But all those trends, I mean, they disappear within a week, so it's fine. But there was quite a lot of negativity on social media.
Right, I did see a little bit, but like I say, it just dipped in and out. All right, that's how it's going, is it? Off we pop.
I mean, it does just get to the stage where I then just go, right, I'd just either mute replies or whatever and go from there, because it can be very poisonous. And it seemed to be unwarranted for me, because and we had a bad game, but were we going to go the season undefeated? No. I mean, this is a fucking difficult league to get out of. We did remarkably well in 2005 to go up first time of asking as a newly promoted team. And Fleetwood got into the playoff semi-finals last year, and Barton knows how to get a good result. So, they'd won the last 2. They'd battered under, was it Villa under 21s? They'd battered them. That Harvey Saunders had scored hat-trick, hadn't he, previously? So obviously they found a good player in him. He was very
decent,
good.
Yeah,
he's a good player for that level.
stating the obvious, but he did look
No,
good.
he was decent.
His movement was
I think he'll
exceptional.
he'll rag a lot of defences about this season if he continues that
Mm.
form, and I'm sure
Possibly won't be at Fleetwood too
you'd
long.
hope so. Because I mean, the other thing, I wanted to talk about the negative. My negative was
Yeah, let's move on to that,
my
shall we?
negative was the defence.
Oh no, we've picked the same one.
But I did wonder, no, because I've got something reserved for this. So if
Okay.
you can talk about the defence in that case, I wanted to talk about Fleetwood's goal music.
Oh god, that was my second choice as well.
What the fuck
Go
was
on.
that? Captain
Captain
Pugwash.
Pugwash.
What the fuck?
It's funny. I mean, it is very funny.
I just
It's unique.
it haunted my dreams, mate. I couldn't go to
I
sleep.
was singing it. I found myself singing it. I was washing my hands after. I was in the bathroom. I was washing my hands, um, singing it on the
Diddle-a-did,
Saturday. I was
diddle-a-did.
like, yeah. I was just like, that is.
That's something
I mean,
else. That I mean, I hate goal music anyway, but
yeah, I'm not a fan of it, but in terms of trolling opposition fans, that's good work.
Captain Pugwash.
There won't be another team in the football league does that.
I mean, I
Fair
don't
play to
get
them.
why they chose that. I mean, is it just let's get something that's funny to troll everybody? Is that what they do, or is it something that's
It'll be
related?
because they're
Or
a seaside club.
I know, but no other seaside club fucking does that. I mean, there's
No, but like Grimsby wave around inflatable fish or
I
something like that,
suppose,
don't they? So,
yeah, bloody codheads.
I don't know. Someone might tell me that they don't. I don't really care.
No, well, it was baffled. I laughed the first time I heard it, and then it just got more and more annoying, and I just felt this silent rage building in me that the Joey Barton was on the sidelines. They had Ched Evans up front, and they've got Pugwash on decks. It's like, could you get any more horrible of a club than that? No wonder the teams don't win there.
It was like everything was just set up to be annoying.
I saw a tweet that was like, Barton's on sideline, Evans is up top. Who's on right wing? Fucking Hitler. I don't know who put that tweet. It was definitely a Hull fan. Did make me laugh. But yeah, that was that. I mean, we'll probably talk about the defence together anyway. But that was my emergency if we'd picked the same one, because I was just, what is that? They didn't even really talk about it on Sky either. It's like the big elephant in the room they were ignoring. So it's just like, can we? Because if you were a pundit, you'd be like, can we just talk about that goal music? How mad is that? And they'd just have a laugh about it. But Lee Hendry was too busy trying to look for offsides when they want on, I think.
Yeah, trying to award penalties for everything.
Yeah, he annoys me. He can go in the bad as well, Lee Hendry. I mean, there's some good commentators and there's some bad commentators, but then there's some fucking horrific ones.
To be fair to him, he wasn't all terrible. There were some points that I thought he made quite well, but yeah,
I'm not a fan, I will say.
It's all about nuance,
indeed,
balance.
You say so.
Yeah.
Well, so if we get onto the defence, then where do you want to start with that?
Yeah. Oh, where do you start?
That's what I mean.
I mean, I suppose that the first place you could start is the centre back pairing.
They looked horrifically weak, didn't they?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I answered a few questions for Crew Alexandra website the other week.
Yeah.
I think it was Crew. I can't remember.
Oh yeah.
And I said that Device and Burke really should be much too good for the level.
Yeah.
And in spite of the way that they finished last season and nights like Friday night, I do think that they should be. I do think that they've got the ability to be kind of top performing centre backs in this division, but God, they were all over the place on Friday.
Yeah.
Device has this habit that I don't like, and I wish they'd kind of coach it out of him, but he loves to come rushing out of his defensive line.
But clever attackers can go, cheers, see you later. And
yeah, especially when the fullback on his side, Elder, is kind of
pushed up and all, and it's
pushing up. So I mean, that had to be tactical instruction for Elder because he was doing it so frequently.
Yeah.
He was bombing on, and
And that's
how we didn't respond
that's
to
fine,
that.
but it wasn't the game to do that. We knew that very quickly when Saunders got the ball. It's like a fucking steam train. And it was
Yeah,
just
and they
like,
were in
please,
behind him nearly every
just
opportunity they
make sure you
wanted.
drop. Don't give them space. And it's a
Yeah,
different game, but they just seemed overcommitted. Like,
yeah.
and yeah, Device didn't
I
help
mean,
things because
well, their first goal has come from Device rushing out
mm,
to either to cover for the fact that Elder is hugely out of position way up the wing, but then Device is nowhere to be found. Batty gets beat in a foot race trying to cover because he's never going to,
no.
win a race there. Burke is isolated.
Mm. I mean, he can't do right from
That's the
wrong there because he's trying to
no,
do
he
two
can't.
defenders' jobs, isn't he?
Yeah, really, what he should have done is,
Crop him.
I mean, he must know that Emmanuel is, he must know that Emmanuel is covering the man waiting for the cutback. Trust him to go with it,
Yeah.
and then go and cut the guy off at the front post. But so he's made a really really poor decision there. But there's three awful decisions from three of your defenders
Mm.
for one goal. It's like if you do that at any standard of football, you deserve to get punished. Same for the second one. Quite what Elder thinks he's doing, pushing up so high for their second goal. When the ball is on the right hand side of the pitch, Emmanuel's in their half taking the throw in.
Mm.
Why is he not tucked round?
Yeah, it's
Why
it
is
was
Elder
baffling that.
so far?
I mean, that was just a shitstorm of a defending position. If you look back at that video, McCann have had a field day with him, wouldn't he?
Yeah, it's horrendous. And that's another thing that I want to talk about once we've spoken about the defence is part of, a little bit of a chat about Grant McCann's post-game comments. So we'll come back to that.
Mm-hmm.
But I cannot for the life of me work out what sort of defending that was. Mad fullback play. Basic stuff. Also, the midfield's massively at fault for that second goal because they've left that centre back so overexposed.
Yeah.
Doherty's pushed right on. Batty's supposed to be the sitter who's provided absolutely no cover because he should have been where Honeyman's looking to pass it to because he's the sitter. Whether he does that naturally or not, I think we've maybe seen that he perhaps doesn't. But there were, you could pick holes out of all the goals really. That there was something in every single one where you're saying there's defensive errors. I mean, Elder doesn't stop the cross for the third. The man gets across. The man gets across
so easily.
Burke with a straight run,
not tracked.
Just beats him. Yeah, just beats him again. And it's like attack the ball. Their man's attacked the ball in the 6-yard box. Burke's not gone with him at all. So getting beat in one-on-one situations and your defensive structure is not necessarily great as a team. You are going to look poor. I'm watching it back now. He's got goal side of him, Burke, for the third, and then he's just not tracked him. He's not looking at the ball as it comes in. He's looking at the man, and the man's run across him. It's appalling defending. And then the fourth.
I think my head just hit the table when that one went in. So I was just for fuck's sake.
And we've got very lucky as well at 3-1.
Yeah, double save from Ingram as well.
Double save. I mean, I'm looking back at it now, and the defending is appalling. For them to clip it in from the edge of the area with the cross, and they've got two at the back post. Device has left a man go on his full back. I think Burke's pushed out and lost his man as well. So it could have been a hell of a lot worse. It really could have been.
He could be watching England like I am currently.
Yeah, I'm not at the moment. What's the score?
1-0 we're losing.
Okay.
And Maguire was sent off after half hour, so we've had 10 men.
Was he? Oh, he'll be catching flack again.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing as that I was going to talk about before. Like, just the I told you so brigade fucking jumping down everyone's throats. Fucking leave him alone, mate.
We need to put an explicit one on this podcast. You're swearing like a mad thing.
I just can't stand it when people love to, like we've always been like, oh, Lewis Potter's mint, or we'd love to see Billy Chadwick in the side. All that. Because you kind of big talent up, and then it just seems to be in our nation's psyche, whether it's City fans or whatever, where they just go, right, he's done something wrong, fucking crucify him, do it.
I think that the difference is he's a Man United defender rather than a Leicester defender now.
Well, or a City
So
defender indeed, because
he's kind of there to be shot at.
I know, but
Anyway,
yeah.
I mean, back to City to finish up on the defence.
Yeah.
That fourth one, Device has just got absolutely done by a massive jump. He's not got up early enough. It's individual battles which they're losing, but I mean they weren't afforded a great deal of protection, as I say, because the defensive structure of the team that on Friday night wasn't great.
And Device should have scored, by the way, to make it 4-2. But fuck me, how did he miss that?
Yeah,
bad, wasn't it?
I mean, at least it was just
because even that just gives you a bit
nights.
more respectability in the score,
Yeah, ever since he was made captain at the end of last season, I think we've seen shortcomings in his game, and he was one. I think he was early on in last year. I mean, talking about last year again.
Don't do that for next bit.
He was one of those. Oh God, yeah, he was one of those players that you're thinking, well, he's performing pretty well, and he was kind of living up to the Championship standard. But I mean, since he was made captain and it's kind of continued on, his willingness or his kind of readiness, if you will, to get in front of the camera, and he did it before the Fleetwood game to start talking. Maybe he was put up for press duty, whatever. But he's pulling these quotes out like the confidence is back in the team, and he did it.
It's just concentrate on your own game, Jordy. Don't worry about that shit.
Yeah, and he's the first one in front of the camera, like at training. There's pictures of him, mugging for the camera and stuff like that. It's like, just be a little bit quieter, be a little bit more low event, and then you can start doing things like that. It's just a criticism of him, and I do like him, but I'm a bit worried about the way that centre back pairing's going. It feels like they're at a turning point. Really,
I think
with us.
It may get to the stage. I mean, if Smallwood's back, which I hope he would be, because we do miss him, mate. We miss Smallwood, but I think Alfie Jones could slot in instead of probably either Device or Burke. I think you need to freshen that up a little bit.
They've had even in games that we've won, they've had a couple of dodgy moments, haven't they?
Yeah, I mean, I chose Burke as my positive last week, but it wasn't Device for a reason that I did think he got slightly lucky on occasion with losing his men and stuff, and it just didn't come to fruition for Plymouth, did it? But
it's that thing that he's got, like I say, where he just wants to come out the defensive line, like rush and
he thinks he's a ball-playing centre-half, and he ain't, mate. He's not at all, is he?
Just rushing out to try and intercept stuff where there's, very little cover.
But he leaves the rest of the back three that he's left exposed. Especially when you've got a high-pressing front three like you had against Fleetwood, you're fucked, are you, basically?
Yeah.
Because they
as well as having that high-pressing front three, the midfield was an issue for me as well, in that I didn't think that Batty was the natural choice for.
I think it was Alfie Jones.
I would have possibly gone with that kind of defensive solidity again. Doherty probably had his worst game.
He wasn't great, was he? But I mean, again, you're going to have players that have bad games. There's 40 odd games this season, and we're going to have to get used to the fact that everyone is not going to be a 7, 8, 9 out of 10 every fucking game. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, and I don't want to get stuck into them after the first defeat too badly. It was a bad defeat, yes, but it in a month's time, when we've seen the context of that defeat, we might look back at it and say it's a bit of a wake-up call.
Yeah,
the players need to understand the standard of teams that they're going to come up against at the sharp end.
And learn tactically from it, because obviously they'd worked us out and gone, this is what we need to do, and they did it.
Yeah. We'll see where it goes.
That might be a nice link to the final part of the bad, where we talk about McCann's presser.
Yeah. It wasn't so much in. I suppose it was in his presser.
Well, his post presser.
And it was particularly the interview with David Burns on Radio Humberside that kind of, I think, caused a bit of a stink. Where
it caused the most chatter on social media, anyway.
From what I saw, he asked him. how worried he was by it. I'm paraphrasing, obviously,
Mm-hmm.
how worried he was by it, given that it had hallmarks of last season. And McCann said, "I don't want to talk about last season." And from the 5 or 10 minutes that I spent online on Saturday morning, I did see that there were people having a pop saying, quite right that McCann doesn't want to talk about last
Yeah.
season. My issue with that is we are at the very early stages of the season, and Grant McCann cannot say, "I'm not going to talk about last season," because yes, it's a different team. Yes, they've started this season very well, but he is the same
Mm-hmm.
manager. Last season is relevant while Grant McCann is manager of the football
Well,
club.
until
If he doesn't
we've
want to,
done anything decent this season, if he got us up at the end of the
yeah,
season, we wouldn't have to talk about last season. But currently, it's
well,
still a
exactly.
wound that's not quite healed for a lot of people.
Yeah, he needs to understand that for us, as long as we're in, you know, in the early stages of the season, last year is still fresh in the
Mm.
memory, that people are going to ask him about it, and he has to accept that as part of his
Yeah,
feelings of last year. He
I,
cannot just say, "I'm not going to
I
talk about it,"
understand from his point of
because
view.
because
Sorry.
he is he is the still the coach. He was the coach last season, so his feelings last season could inform how this season goes. And the question isn't so much. I suppose he could have phrased it better, Bernsey.
Mm. But there is always going to be that
Perhaps,
maybe negative undertone with the BBC radio questions
possibly,
because of what's happened at the start of the season and the reaction last season of the Wigan and the other defeats where there were some tough questions asked and he didn't respond well to it.
yeah,
Then maybe there is that, and he wants to be seen as going tough against Radio Umberside. But also he
yeah. I
can't.
mean, that's
Yeah, I
possibly
don't
it.
know, but he can't also
But
expect people not to. He can't be so precious and think I'm not going to talk about that now because
because
that's fine.
the comparison
That's
is
fine.
there. There is a direct comparison because he is the same
Yes.
manager. He's playing the same two centre backs and the same left
Yeah.
back.
Yeah. And
So
for
he has to
many
be ready to
fans
stand
won't
up
want to
to that.
say, well, they won't want to talk about last season, and it may be in the squad, around training. He's like, right, we don't last season, history, move on, blah blah, and
Which I understand, and I
that's
think that is the
completely
right.
right. That isn't anything that he needs
Yeah,
to dwell on with the players, but he has to expect in the media as soon as there's a defeat, what they're going to do? They're going to mention last season where we won 2 games in 22 or whatever it was.
yeah, and more than that, it's not just the win loss record of last season. It was the defensive
Oh, and
frailties
yeah,
were
yeah,
very similar, and that's where for me it's a relevant line of
mm.
questioning.
And again, we're not.
What has he learned?
Yeah, I mean, he'd learned clearly. I think so far this season, he's learned how to play the teams that we've come up against well. But he's been worked
Mm.
out, and that's going to happen. Not like we said, it's
Yeah, of
going to
course it
happen.
is.
But he needs to then respond well from it, and not just be precious and go, "Oh well, I'm not talking to you now," or "I'm not talking about
Yeah,
that," or just
I
being
don't.
really defensive and coming across. I'm not saying he's arrogant, but coming across as arrogant is not going to do you any favours with the vast majority of City fans who may have some kind of, still pissed off that we
Yeah, I
can't
mean, I
listen
did.
to Radio Umberside commentary, although it's not to do with McCann himself,
Yeah,
It's still a sore
I
point.
didn't necessarily think he came across as arrogant,
No,
but
I didn't say that. I
and,
just
and
think
my
that's
issue
what
isn't
people
even
were saying, that Grant McCann was arrogant,
right.
that on social
Right.
media.
My issue isn't even necessarily with what he said, saying I don't want to talk about last season. It was more like, I don't know. He's there. I'm not, no, he's not there to be
No.
shot at as such, but it's still a relevant comparison, or it's still a relevant question to ask, to say it looks an awful lot like last season. What have you know, what do you do to change that? Because he's still the coach and it's three of the same back
Mm.
four.
Yeah.
So it's still
Well,
relevant. It's still
I
relevant
think
to ask that.
the first half was okay because we got back into it and rode our luck a little bit.
It was all right. I mean, it was all a little bit frantic
It
anyway,
was,
wasn't it? I
but
didn't think
then
we weren't ever settled
it
in the
was
game. We were playing at a million miles an hour
it
all
was
the time.
elements of last season mainly because we conceded so early and we couldn't recover from it, and that was the story last season, wasn't it? So you are
Yeah,
going to have those comparisons whether you like them or not, And again,
Yeah, see, just
I will say, mainly, I want to try and keep things positive where we can because this season, I mean, if you'd have said, the other thing is, if you'd have said, first 5 games will be joint top and only lost once, people would have gone, yeah, I bet that. It's just the way
yeah. I
it's the
mean, I
way
would,
that it's come about because of the order of the results. If we'd have lost the first one, then improved, people wouldn't be talking about it so much. But it's because we've gone not conceded, not conceded, not conceded, not conceded. Oh shit, we've had
yeah,
a stinker. That's made it worse, I think.
yeah. And don't get me wrong. I mean, how long into this are we? This section of the podcast, like plenty because we're talking about the game as like we are focused on the 4-1 defeat. It might sound like I'm feeling overly negative. I'm not,
No,
because there are games in even promotion seasons where you can go and get absolutely tonked, and
it's how you recover from it and come back, though, isn't it? Yeah.
exactly. That's what I'm interested in is
If we go
the
and
response to it in
beat
the Rochdale.
Rochdale 3-0, no one mentions Fleetwood anymore. Maybe apart from the goal music.
Exactly. So I was I, I was fairly. I mean, the nature of the performance was horrendous, as you probably
Yes.
gathered from the way that we've spoken. But I was after the game. I was still fairly like, not that I wasn't
Well, you weren't
bothered
depressed
or
after the game.
non.
It was just like, no, that was a bit shit, wasn't it? But anyway, we look forward to the
Yeah,
next
because
one. That it was more that, wasn't it?
it's yeah, it's still early days, and it's been a great start to the
Mm,
season. The manner of the defeat is
mm,
concerning,
mm.
but we'll see where we go from here. I don't want to seem like I'm saying the wheels have
No,
fallen off and all of a sudden I don't want a ticket aboard HMS Pistol League. Um, you know, we
HMS
might still
Pistol
go on
League.
to have a very good season.
Yeah, it's just off course for a little bit, guys. It's not an iceberg or anything. It's
Yeah,
just gone a little bit.
it's just one of those things where because you're focusing on one particular game, it's like it is going to sound
Yeah.
overly negative, and I don't necessarily feel that way.
Yes. Well put. We were going to talk about Project Big Picture, weren't we?
Yeah, that's our number, isn't it?
Which was 250 million, wasn't it? I think.
250 million to sell your soul.
Imagine, yeah. But today they've basically been told, Liverpool United, haven't they? Get back in your box, lads. You've got to work together with all of this. We are going to look at a reform package, but it can't be what you've said.
Mm.
If I've understood the article that I read correctly, that's basically what they've said.
More than one way to it.
Yeah.
Let's start by kind of having a look at what was proposed.
Yeah.
Under Project Restart. I don't know.
Well, there was that Good Athletic piece that really broke it down in a lot of detail. That was informative reading.
It was, and it was good to read that because it made you kind of examine it in greater detail, and it's not just the kind of proposal to give the big six, if you will.
It was Matt Slater's piece, wasn't it? And what it basically did was it went through it and said, what they're going to say, who's going to benefit, and it went.
Yeah.
It went through each part like that, which was useful to look at.
There was a lot to like about it. So, I mean, starting off with the 250 million quid to tie in with our number, that was the proposal that the Premier League was going to give the EFL 250 million pounds divided between the leagues to cover the lost revenues for this season, the end of last, and then there was other money going off to the FA.
Mm-hmm. It's for grassroots investment. It said, all the buzzwords were there to make people go, "Oh, hey, that's good."
So on paper, that's a great thing, and it's a good thing that they're doing for the game, to kind of cover the losses for the EFL. Because there are a lot of teams who will be struggling.
There was money for the women's game in there as well, I understand.
Yeah, there was, but I mean, there was another proposal there that would allow the women's game to form its own governing body, separate to the FA and the Premier League,
like a WFA. Basically, yeah.
And I think the concern was that they get a little bit overshadowed by, the men's game with the FA. But then the downside to that from the things that I've read, is that there is a concern that the women's game might not yet be viable enough to stand on its own. I
Yeah,
don't know enough about it to be able to say whether that's true or not. So somebody might be able to chime in and say that that is or isn't the case.
there is a journalist. He's very young, actually. I think he's actually only 16.
All right.
Adam Millington is called. He's a kind of well-respected women's football journalist, although he covers men's teams as well. But he writes for the same website. He's editor-in-chief of the website that I'm for. And he's very pro women's game and, talks about it in a positive way and does a lot to kind of like get the exposure up, if you like.
Yeah.
But he obviously he was very, very against the big picture. But one of the other things he's had to deal with was the fact that he's always been a big, proponent of the Women's Super League and trying to expand it to make sure that it's got a bigger audience and growing women's football, which is kind of what we want to do with the City ladies team, because there are two City teams, aren't they? And it's good to cover both in the podcast that we do. But the problem with the Women's Super League currently is that there's been an awful lot of one-sided results, because teams are winning 9-0, 7-1 every week, and that's in the Premier League. So it's that kind of thing where the imbalance and the finished product isn't there yet, and people will slate it given a chance for reasons like that. So, it's supposed to be the Premier League. You get 9-0 results every week because there's 2 or 3 teams that are going to win it.
Yeah,
it's a problem.
Establishing a league can take 20 odd years, can't it? I mean, you look at the MLS, say.
Yeah.
You'll know about that because obviously you'll follow it in detail. But 20 years ago, it was a joke.
It was. The penalty kicks were runs from the halfway line.
Yeah,
they had to beat the keeper 1-on-1, like just little stuff like that.
In some games now, you might look at it and compare it to other more established leagues and say the standard still isn't there, but it's competitive within the standard. If you were to take an MLS team and have them play a Premier League team, you'd probably see that there's a massive gulf. But within the league itself, it's competitive.
Yes.
Yeah. It's not lopsided anywhere, is it?
No, there are fail-safes to make sure that doesn't happen, interestingly enough, though. And one of
the draft system and stuff.
The draft system is I'm quite a big fan. It wouldn't work in this country because we're not used to that.
Player recruitment's completely different. It's set up totally different.
But it isn't the way that the MLS. Well, it's not the MLS. It's MLS. That they don't like it referred to as the Major League Soccer. They just call it MLS. But anyway, they kind of say basically that the majority of the players that would get paid, X amount, which is similar to the rest of the players, are actually owned by the league, and you actually enter into a contract with the league rather than the team, contract. Because that means it's security for players as well as clubs. So if they don't want the player at the end of the end of that season, they go back into the draft and somebody else picks them up. So you don't get players dropping out into non-league. Well, really, because they're in non-league in the States anyway. They're in that grassroots development. There's only 2 teams. There's like B teams, which obviously would be against as well. But the other thing is that the designated players means that you're always going to have those big money stars attracted, and they're going to be the focal point, and they can pay them as much as they want because they have salary caps in some respect. They can't have more than 3 massive earners on the club, and they actually get rewards for playing homegrown players because they want to try and develop their own. But you can do that in that league because it's still very fledgling in some ways.
Yeah.
It isn't, Premier League was established this is an interesting point to make also, that, they want to put the teams to 18 from 20. And actually, I remember the Premier League when it was 22 teams.
24 initially, wasn't it?
It was 22 from the start. There was 42 games. So you see,
right.
92, 93, 93, 94, 94, 95, there were 22 teams, and then 4 teams got relegated, only 2 came up at the end of the 95 season.
And it was originally intended to only be 18 anyway, wasn't it?
Yeah, but they voted for an extra. It was the way that the Football League voted at the time, because they wanted to form it in the 80s from what I've read, but it never really got off the ground. I think it was actually Leeds won the league, didn't they, the season before, and it was then Man United won the first 92-93 season, but it was 22 teams originally. So you had 42 games, and they said that was too hectic for scheduling, so they shifted it to 20. But this one, they would say from 22 to 23 season, it would be an 18-team Premier League, because the Bundesliga is 18 teams, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about La Liga. You'll know more than me.
20.
Is it 20? I didn't know if they were trying to try and bring it up into other leagues, but I mean, the other thing that you've got to say about this is that they clearly want a European Super League at some point, don't they?
Well, it certainly seems that way. Definitely, it was kind of. I mean, I can remember the European Super League being spoken about even as back as as far as the early 90s, as being a.
Well, it was when the Champions League first started. The Champions League was knockout from the get-go, wasn't it? There was no league system per se.
Yeah, it was.
So
yeah, it was two-legged rounds, wasn't it?
Yeah, and usually English clubs went out in the first round because they couldn't play foreign players. They couldn't play more than three out foreign players until the Bosman ruling came
ended up
in.
with players like Gary Walsh in goal instead of being able to play Peter
because they wanted to play
like
Cantona or whatever, and then he ended up losing his head in Turkey and two-footing someone and getting everything thrown at him.
Who hasn't lost their head in Turkey?
Well, clearly, but yeah. I mean, the other...
Lots of people have had mad holidays over there, I'm sure.
I mean, one of the other proposals I noticed when I'm going through the article, Community Shield and League Cup to be scrapped. I mean, what do you think of that?
Don't like it.
You don't like the fact it be scrapped, or you don't like the cup?
I'm not... It's a funny one.
Because the League Cup isn't the EFL trophy, is it?
No. But, and to be fair, I think there'd be greater cause to kind of look at the EFL trophy. But it's a funny one because as a fan, the League Cup doesn't massively inspire me. I think I've said that before.
Yeah. It was when we beat Sunderland. You said, "I'm glad we went through, but I'm actually not that bothered." Before we were going to play Leeds, and we had that chat before the Leeds game, you were like, "I'm not arsed, really."
Yeah, and that's not because I'm not bothered about watching cup competitions or I don't care about how City do in cup competitions.
It's not how success is measured, though, is it?
It's the inequality.
Yeah,
you've got no chance of competing as a team in our level. You've got no chance of competing. So it's those rounds or those competitions for lower league teams exist almost to boost the balance books.
It's a very rare story, and you look back to Sheffield United,
like Bradford City,
yeah. But Sheffield United, they got to we beat them at FA Cup semi-final.
Yeah,
they were League One at the time, weren't they?
And like Leicester winning the Premier League, there's a reason why there's so much made of it at the time. It's because it's an exceptional story rather than the norm.
Yes.
What I'm saying is like the early rounds of those competitions. All right, you're never going to win it. You won't win it. But they play an important part in a club's finances if you are one of the fortunate ones that draw a Premier League team or a side bigger than you in another division. So they do play an important role, and I think to take that away, all right, they're saying it might be covered because there's going to be greater distribution of Premier League TV rights down the pyramid and the 250 million quid that they're going to give teams to get through this tricky period. They're saying, things like that, the renegotiation of EFL TV rights will go in with the Premier League TV rights and stuff like that. To me, the long-term benefit of that is only there for teams who are in a position to say, we want to play less games because we're playing European competition. We also want to shorten the season because we are going to go on lucrative foreign tours.
That's the other thing. It's the game. Like it's the game 38 or whatever, game 39, should I say?
Yeah, because
where they go out to Dubai and have another one.
They were building in a requirement,
yeah,
whereby Premier League teams were going to have to contribute or going to have to play in
Far East or somewhere.
Yeah, competitions abroad.
Yeah, it was basically like the Asia Trophy or whatever.
Was it at least once every 4 or 5 years?
Something like that.
So, short term, they're trying to sell it as a benefit. Long term, the only benefit is for teams further up. It's for the bigger sides. That's the trouble with the whole proposal. was that the long-term benefits for this
Mm.
were not with teams in the AFL, and there weren't even with teams in the lower reaches of the Premier League.
Mm.
Um, Really, the only long-term benefits to this, beyond these next couple of years and ensuring the survival of clubs, 5, 10 years down the line from this, the long-term benefits were with Man United,
Well,
Liverpool.
yeah, I mean, I think that's a good thing to kind of end on with this, because I'll just read you the last bit, because obviously you have read the article, but it said
Yeah,
the proposal was that most decisions will continue to be made on a one club, one vote basis, with approval requiring a majority of 2/3, whatever. But then decisions relating to the election or removal of members of the Premier League board, so who's going to be who's going to have special voting rights in the Premier League, it would only be the top six or the top nine or whatever it was. So they decided that Arsenal, Chelsea, Liverpool, Manchester City, United, Everton, Tottenham, Southampton, and West Ham were the ones that they would be the winners in this, because they'd have more like voting rights because they'd been in the
yeah,
Premier League longer. So somebody like Aston Villa, Newcastle, whatever, and Southampton, Southampton would be a winner, but Newcastle and Aston Villa, teams like that who you would see as established Premier League teams more often than not. I know that Villa haven't particularly been brilliant over the last 5 or 6 years, but I always think of Villa as a Premier League team because when I grew up, they were.
yeah.
Same with Newcastle, really. I know they've been up and down a little bit, and they've got Bruce now. But I mean, in all fairness, I don't 100% see what Newcastle's problem with Bruce is, because he's actually doing a pretty good job in my eyes. But
Could be it could be anyone. Let's be fair.
Yeah,
Let's be fair.
that's true.
They're going to find a problem somehow as long as Mike Ashley's
absolutely.
in charge.
But
fair enough. Fair enough. I'm not criticising that, but
no, not at all. But yeah,
their outlet is for their anger should probably be redirected.
Definitely. The end bit of this article just says, who are the losers? So they've gone through the article and it'd gone, what's the proposal? Who's a winner? Who's a loser? And like a lot of it, you would say, oh yeah, that's really good. But then at the end, it just says, forget everything you've read. We're all losers if we let them get away with this. This is a sad, unloved Frankenstein's creature drifting off into the darkness on an ice raft, never to be seen again. Lose the monster, though, and we might be back in business. So it's saying, look, idea's great, but the way you've gone about this is horrendous, because it only benefits a very, very small number of clubs in the long run.
Yeah.
Because it's like a short-term cash injection to save everybody, but actually then we'll control football for all of eternity, and you can do fuck all about it.
Weighting it horribly in their favour for the long
Unbelievable.
term.
I mean, it is believable, because they want to be able to make decisions on things that they don't. Currently, they don't like things not going in their favour, like with scheduling and all of that. They'd make sure, wouldn't they, that they'd be self-serving. But it's like when you had that vote to shut down the league last year, for Leagues 1 and 2, and they gave each team a vote. I mean, only people who were in danger of losing any sort of status would be the ones who were against it. So because it was all self-serving, wasn't it? Because clubs are going to go, well, we're all right. Yeah, we'll have that. So you can't let clubs have votes on things, because they're always going to be self-interested, aren't they?
It's interesting that the kind of Premier League voting thing has been the headline story.
Because it's not just what that things is about, is it? There's so much more to the project.
And like you say, there are some positives to it. Personally, I'm less worried about Premier League voting rights than I am about the proposals to change the requirements for academies.
Yes, I did see that, actually.
I think that's really worrying.
Yeah.
Because, all right, the Premier League currently kind of, in a roundabout way, financially support football.
Just so we've got this, the academies, loans and contracts, it says that the Premier League's current support for EFL academies will be included in the much increased solidarity payments, but clubs below the Championship will no longer be required to have academies. Now, that is incredibly worrying for a team like City.
The proposal there is to have a larger expansion of the loan market, whereby clubs will be allowed to loan out up to 15 players in total and 4 to any single club. Loans in will be unlimited and clubs bringing players in on loan will be incentivized with payments based on the performance or sales of loan players. That screams feeder club to me.
Massively. It's like Udinese with Watford.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Basically.
Man United.
Call yourself fucking Watford B, mate.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Man United and that team that Warren Joyce had out in Belgium that Fraser
Antwerp.
Campbell played for before he. Yeah.
Royal Antwerp.
So that's the really worrying part of all those proposals for me. Teams with lesser financial status might look at that and think,
what's the point of having an academy?
Or what's the point in having a squad?
We'll just borrow Man United. We'll borrow for Man United, for Man City, and it's basically become League 1 and 2 have become a B League. For whatever local team you'd have, we'd have a load of Leeds youngsters. Maybe some Middlesbrough, that sort of thing, wouldn't it? Under that proposal.
Yeah, so that kind of thing is great for teams like Man United and Liverpool. Chelsea would be licking their lips at that.
Well, Chelsea do it all fucking time anyway, mate, don't they? I mean, they have what? They've got 50 players on loan every year. They have a group chat for just loan players.
Yeah, so that but those players are going out all over the world.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
Can you imagine if they were able to loan 15 of those players out to English teams?
Unbelievable, isn't
it? It would increase their kind of desire to build on that business model.
And that exists to make money, isn't it? It's not about developing players, that's all.
Exactly. Well, yeah, it's a money making thing, but I think that is one of the biggest threats to the football structure in this country, in that you will eventually get de facto B teams. And that's the other thing, massive power grab, just trying to weight it to their advantage, but disguise it as if we'll help you survive. But it's kind of like, a parasitic wasp type thing. Like, we'll lay the egg on your forehead. It's going to burrow in, and eventually it'll eat you out from the inside.
Yeah, that's very nice. I just looked at Chelsea's on loan list, and from first team only, there are 30 players out on loan.
Bloody hell.
I mean, some of those, you've got Loftus-Cheek have gone to Fulham, Barkley's gone to Villa, Van Inkel's gone to PSV, Lucas Piazon's gone to Rio Ave, and then you've got things like Kennedy gone to Granada, George McEachran, Kennedy. Jamal Blackman, who just has never played a game for Chelsea, just gone to Rotherham.
No, I mean, they've had players like that for years. We benefited from having Michael Hector.
Yeah.
Benefited.
We had Ola Anya as well, didn't we?
Yeah.
But all of those players never play a first team game. I mean, Matt Miazga is another one. A player I knew from his time at New York Red Bulls, and bought him for like $2 million. Played one game, I think. He's gone on loan to Anderlecht, and he's been like 2 seasons in Holland. It's that. So that kind of business model is what would be the norm, wouldn't it? But it would be in this country rather than out everywhere, which is a bit worrying.
Yeah.
I mean, I say a bit worrying. It's very worrying because if the Alams didn't have to have an academy, then they wouldn't, would they?
Yeah, and it might not necessarily be in kind of like aged professionals like that. It would be in the youngsters.
Yeah.
They would have greater license to stockpile more young players to loan them out. If those young players aren't, say, breaking through with Football League clubs, then they're at Premier League clubs because they're the ones that can now afford to maintain an academy. Yeah. That's one of the worrying things. The other thing, I mean, we've gone on at length about this, but the other thing that I think is a little bit dodgy from like a EFL club's fans' perspective is the proposal to put a Premier League team in the Championship playoffs in the same way that they do the SPL now.
Yes, they do it SPL, but they also do it in Bundesliga, actually.
Yeah, but it just makes it even more of a closed shop.
Yeah, it's like, right, well, you've won the league and you've won the playoffs, or you've won the first round of it. Now you're going to have to actually play the big lad, and the big lad will come up top. So
I think they're saying that the teams 3rd through 5th would qualify for the playoffs along with the team in 16th in the Premier League.
So it's just another way of trying to keep the big boys in the big boy league, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, but
Yeah.
you know, TV rights holders would absolutely love it
Of course they
because it's
would.
unusual and it
Viewing
provides
figures
extra
done
intrigue.
all the
But
way
in
up there.
terms of how that will benefit the pyramid in the long term,
The way they try to sell it though as well, if you look at the fans and matchday experience, Premier League away tickets to be capped at £20, away travel subsidised, and a minimum away allocation of 3,000 fans. Who wouldn't love that?
yeah,
Who wouldn't love that?
well,
Imagine having a
that
minimum of 3,000 tickets if you're City and you're in the Premier League.
that's the thing. It's like, why does it take a pretty sketchy power grab
To have
for them?
reasonable ambitions for what a Premier League experience should be like.
Yeah,
Yeah,
to change ticket
yeah,
prices and to subsidise travel. They can do that now.
yeah. Of course they can.
They
The
they
Premier League
don't
don't
they
need gate
don't
revenue. We do.
they don't need to take they don't need to take all these things away from EFL clubs
Mm.
and even sides lower down in the Premier League, you know, to say we can offer fans £20 a ticket
Mm.
and subsidise your travel. They can do it now.
Mm. But that's the Germany model, isn't it?
Yeah, but they can do it now.
They could, yeah. But
They
again,
can
if
do
you've
it
got a
now.
season pass, you get the home and away games in Germany, and you can show your season pass on a train ticket. It's a free train ticket.
Yeah,
I mean, imagine
I mean,
people would fucking use trains, wouldn't they? Then
they couldn't they couldn't do that here. Trains, you know, it's a whole different animal here.
admittedly, the Germans
But
are
in terms,
better at public transport than we are. I will say that. But
I'm thinking more in terms of the ticket prices though.
yeah,
That's the thing. 20 quid a ticket. It's doable now. I don't I don't understand why there isn't the greater desire to do it now.
yeah, it shouldn't
And I
take
don't.
this to bring that to the fore,
No,
should it?
they shouldn't package it in with all this other stuff
No, no.
because you know they can do it anyway. It should be entirely separate. That should be a separate
Yeah,
thing.
it's like them going,
Uh,
right, if we get all the power, we'll make sure this happens. And it's like, well, you don't need the power to do that. Do it now.
yeah,
And then people might
yeah.
listen to you a bit more. You set of selfish wankers.
Yeah, and apparently although you know, fortunately, this has all been kind of vetoed in
Yeah.
like a Premier League board meeting
Yeah, it was an
today on
emergency one,
Zoom or
wasn't it?
whatever it
Yeah.
was.
It's like a
Yeah,
Cobra
so
meeting, but for football, to which
yeah,
people
although
actually turned
apparently
up.
Man United and Liverpool and a couple of other clubs have come out of it thinking that it's not all off the table. They've started a discussion for greater reform that is apparently going to be finalised before the negotiations on the next round of rights coverage, or you know, coverage rights at the end of the year.
What a shock.
So yeah, so 2 months to push through something that really is really pretty complex. Um, we'll see where we go from here. I did see somebody, I can't remember what piece it was that I read or something. I think it was a comment on either a Guardian or Athletic piece that said that the this is this proposal has been so deliberately outlandish, and it served a purpose in that it's got these issues on the table. So while this has seemed so outlandish as to almost be ridiculed, they said it's the second one that you want to watch for because there'll still be these
Yeah,
ideas
they'll
and
just
they'll
be
get through
buried.
the ones that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Indeed. Obviously,
We've gone a bit long.
we have
on
gone a
that.
bit long, and actually, you know, we don't normally talk about other things other than City, but I did think that would have negative ramifications on City.
Well, it directly affects us.
So that was why we talked about it for so long. But I was just going to talk briefly to you about the Rochdale game.
Yeah.
So they basically started their league season with a 0-0 draw at home to Portsmouth, and then lost to Ipswich. Also lost to they beat Fleetwood, shockingly, and then they lost to Accrington. So I think at their place,
1-1 draw, 1 lost, 3, haven't they?
At their place,
Scored 4, conceded 8.
they are. Well, I think they'll be tough to break down. I think they'll make it very difficult for us. I think it'll be more like playing Northampton. I don't know what you think about that.
Yeah, I've done a little bit of reading about them and their style of play. apparently they like to play through the middle, but are quite porous. They'll give teams a lot of chances whilst not taking their own.
Yeah, I mean, it's their budget that makes them like that because they can't attract the
Yeah, and
big paid players.
they've lost some very good players, this summer. They lost Ian Henderson to Salford. They've lost a lad to Scunthorpe. I'm not going to try and mutilate his name.
Yeah, I know you mean actually. Yeah,
yeah, and they've lost Daniel Adsheed to Norwich as well, who was a promising youngster.
Yeah, obviously.
So it was one of the things that their fans said in the
pre-season,
counted for a summer.
Pre-season.
Yeah, that they were going to struggle for goals this season. There was a feeling that they've tightened up at the back a little bit because last season I know they conceded 87 goals.
Well, that's the same number as we did. Interestingly enough,
yeah. We could be a great match for each other.
There'll be eight class, loads of goals. Do absolutely wonders for our goals scored, but not for our goals against.
Obviously, we're recording this before Grant McCann's given his press conference, but would you look to change anything, do you think?
I mean, I'd like to see Smallwood in for Batty.
Yeah, that would be the ideal.
I'd also like McGuinness back in. I'd like...
Wilkes really struggled, didn't he? I think it was interesting.
I don't think he's fully fit. I think he did get a knock, and I think he just wasn't quite at the races. I think from minute one he was bullied though, mate, 100%. Their centre backs were giving him a torrid time. He was isolated. He's not that player where you can't just hoofball to him because he's not that player. He doesn't hold it up the same as McGuinness would. And I know that there may be people listening to this who go, "What the fuck would you choose McGuinness over Wilkes?" And it's horses for courses, isn't it? You've got to play the players for the correct games. And I think someone like McGuinness needs to be that battling centre forward, giving Honeyman time or the space to run in behind and finish, or create that chance for Lewis Potter off the left, or even if you put Wilkes on the right, I'd still have that because you could swap that front three again, couldn't you? Depending on how you're attacking.
Yeah, there's also, that's where the biggest selection headache's going to be, I think.
Front three. Yeah, because the Delican's done all right so far, but then you've also got Scott coming back.
Playing well.
Scott's injured, isn't he? Scott's out.
Scott's injured, yeah. Scott's injured, but,
you've got McGuinness. McGuinness coming back, and I don't know about Eves because he said he'd had a setback.
Yeah, I don't expect he's going to be available, but I don't have any information that would.
We might know more from McCann's presser. To be fair, he might talk about that.
Yeah,
I mean the other person that we should talk about is Super Paul McShane. He'll be on the other side, which will be weird.
Yeah, it will be weird.
I noticed he went off at half time against Accrington. So whether he's injured or whether it was just a tactical change, I don't know. But he was withdrawn at half time away to Accrington. Right. Maybe they went, based on this, they went 4-5-1. So they're going to pack that midfield and just have a target man up top. I mean, it doesn't mean they're going to play the same way, but I would suggest that a team like Rochdale will have a way of playing that's drilled into them. But they were playing against...
You're going exclusively on the fact it's Rochdale there, aren't you?
Well, they've played against Accrington, and Accrington gone three at the back, you see. So they probably switched it around to try and match them if they were getting no joy. So I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine, to be fair. But it'd be nice to see Paul McShane again, even if it's not in a City shirt, because I always loved McShane.
Yeah, bring back some good memories.
Don't sell McShane. If we were there, we'd be...
Yeah, technically we didn't.
No, we didn't. He left on a free.
That's probably why there wasn't a riot.
Yeah. I always thought we could have had him for another... Did you see also, this isn't linked necessarily to Rochdale, but George Boyd had been released from his contract at Peterborough.
Yeah. Has he? Already?
Yeah. Apparently it's too big for the wage bill. Because obviously the salary cap coming in and everything else. I think he's without a club. If he took a pay cut, I'd have him back, I'll tell you that. But
yeah,
I know he was good for us, and then I think we let him go to Burnley too easily. I think the second season we needed players like him.
Yeah, we did miss him when he went. It was one of those. I always felt like he deferred to other players in the team a little bit too much when we got promoted. I
Yeah.
felt like he had
Well,
the
it was
ability
like
to.
Davis for Michael Dawson, wasn't it?
Mm. But I mean, in game situations where at times you might think that he had the ability to make something happen on his own, but he'd look for a pass or
Mm.
something rather
I'll
than
never, I'll never
trying to be
forget the
more
goal against
assertive.
Huddersfield in the promotion season.
Oh God, yeah,
Brilliant goal that. I
yeah.
think that was when everyone
Or his
boycotted. Did
celebration
everyone
against
boycott that game?
his celebration against
Oh,
Forest.
the glasses thing. See, he only had one eye. He's only got one
Yeah,
eye.
clearly
Class.
didn't have to.
Yeah. I always loved the banter
Dyslexic
with
tigers.
Forest because we always used to chat that you're not massive anymore, and then they'd come back with oh you're not famous anymore. We'd say to them, like, oh you're not famous anyway. To us, that was good natured, quite good.
That's fine. That's
Yeah.
fine. Yeah.
Got both, mate. We're still winning. McShane scored with his hands, so.
Yeah.
Uh, but
All came home to roost kind of Christmas time last year,
oh
though,
yeah,
didn't it?
absolutely.
Uh,
Dear me, yeah.
why are we talking
I
about
don't know
Forest?
because they're massive apparently. Anyway,
Yeah.
so Rochdale. Well, I mean, this is the sort of game that you need to. I hate using cliches and everything, but the back to basics thing is one that probably McCann will use tomorrow. Keeping it
We
keeping
need
it
to
simple.
we need to
We
bounce
really
back.
do. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's. I wouldn't make an awful lot of changes because I think changes for the sake of changes disrupt the team. But I would,
Yeah.
I would, I
I'd
would,
agree with
I
that.
would consider giving Device or Burke. I mean, I think Device has been poorer than Burke in fairness, and I would put Alfie Jones in there, and I'd have Smallwood in front. I'd keep Doherty, I'd
Hmm.
keep Honeyman, and then again I would have McGuinness, Lewis Potter, and Wilkes up top. It's a bit of a toss up between Wilkes. If he's not 100% fit, I'd play a Delican. But I would.
Yeah.
I don't know
But it
about.
might also be a chance to.
Sorry, I don't know about Elder and whether just take him out of the limelight. You'd maybe have Fleming in there. I don't know. Maybe Fleming's.
I
Maybe
don't know.
it's not the game for
It's
Fleming because he's a young lad.
it's a lot of change. Let's not forget. We were talking before the Fleetwood game about having not
It's
conceded a
true.
goal. All right, we defended very, very badly
Yeah.
against
Yeah.
Fleetwood. But let's not chuck the baby out with the
Yeah, I
bathwater.
get that point. Yeah.
I think a lot of the players have, if we're to follow Grant McCann's lead and only take them on the merits of this season, those players have all earned the right to be able to have another go
Yeah.
and right the wrongs of Friday night. So I would err on the side of caution. I think minimum changes. Smallwood back in is a massive plus. I think
We really miss
does
him.
a lot of the
We really have missed him. We got
yeah
away with it a little bit against Plymouth in my eyes.
yeah
Getting that win,
yeah.
but
He does the
really
horrible
does.
bits, but he keeps your structure
he's
sound.
such an important player for us, and I don't think he gets the credit he deserves when he plays because I think it's more.
Players in that position never have done though. You have to be
Well, I
exceptional.
suppose Ashby's the one
to
that
be
everyone would talk about,
but
but even then,
even when Ashby was playing for us, he didn't necessarily get the recognition he deserved. It took, I think, the promotion to the Premier League for people to start talking about Ian Ashby in the way that he deserved.
well, yeah, captaining
He was
everybody
doubted
throughout
every
all
time
four divisions is going to do something for you.
Yeah, he was doubted every time he stepped up, and I think it's one of those positions that it's not easy to quantify your impact on the team, and people who don't want to put myself forward as somebody who's like a hugely educated football watcher. I think I know my game a little bit, but some people don't look for those types of players on the pitch, which is why generally you have to be exceptional to be noticed.
Yeah.
Thinking of like Kante and Makalele, players like that get noticed, but like the ones that are important for the structure of the team and do a very basic, for lack of a better word.
I do think sometimes that, I mean,
job.
I don't like to talk about the big clubs as it were, but someone like Michael Carrick or even Jordan Henderson, people say, oh, why are they getting such praise or being highlighted because they don't do anything? And it's like, do you understand football? Like, do the way that they sense danger and break up an attack is as good as for the team as somebody who goes up the other end and scores. But it's when they're not there that they're missed
but
again.
even something like positional discipline, to know where you need to be and
It's
not
like
deviate.
it's like
from that.
running round,
I
I think, with a hose, putting fires out, and it never becomes a fire, so no one sees it as a problem.
Yeah. So like the obvious example is Fleetwood's second goal on
Yeah.
Friday night. I don't think that we'd have conceded that goal, or maybe not as easily as we did, if you have somebody like Smallwood in who's just going to hold that position in
Yeah,
front
and
of the
even
back
if he
four.
wasn't in that position, he'd have fucking cropped him. Because he's not afraid to do that. And I know Honeyman likes a booking sometimes, but there weren't enough challenges for me.
I guess we'll never know on that one.
There weren't enough challenges for me. I think Fleetwood bullied people. Again, if we're going back to the beginning, I think we need to learn from that for the Rochdale game, because you can't let ourselves be bullied like that. Because if it's going to be, there's going to be physical games in this league. We know from Northampton we've played that so well for the game that it was, because that was a horrific game, wasn't it, Northampton? But we did so well in bad circumstances to come away with, we had 2 bits of quality and score from both of them. I see it kind of panning out a little. I don't think they'll be as direct, shall we say, as Northampton, but I do think it'll be a similar kind of level of opposition where it will be difficult to break them down, and we need to be patient.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. But I think we've got enough to bounce back.
Yeah, I just want to see us do it.
I think there will be a determination to put it right.
Yeah.
And hopefully we'll be sitting here next week and we'll be talking
how good we were.
A good bounce back win. Yeah, I think it's a big test of this squad where they're at in terms of their mentality as to how they can cope with a tonking like that.
Yeah, because it could have been 5 or 6 in fairness.
Yeah, we'll get a measure of what they're made of, and that then might justify McCann in saying that we don't talk about last season if they're able to put this
to quote
they might be made of sterner stuff.
To quote an old Hull City football consultant, the bounce back ability. We'll see in Dowie's coin phrase, won't it?
Hopefully we'll all be doing a big punch at full time.
And we'll talk about our wiry wingers.
Our wiriness.
Still can't get over that. I know we talked about that last week, but I still can't get over that. That's hilarious.
Yeah. What a great way to describe a player.
I think of Ricky Gervais in Afterlife, where that guy. I don't know if you've seen it, have you?
I had to stop. We started watching it during lockdown. I had to stop because it was just not what I needed during that time.
Completely. It is very tear-jerky, that, but one of the ones it was very dark. Yeah, there was a great bit.
Yeah, I wanted to watch The Sound of Music and be happy. I didn't really want to watch that.
Not with the Nazis in it. But
just not with the singing.
Or anything for that matter.
Yeah,
there's a great bit where Gervais is stopped by this guy in the street, with a clipboard, the charity thing, and he just basically said, "You don't care about the kids or that. You just in it. I just effectively be paying your wages, you wiry little twat." It's like digging him out. This guy with like glasses and a high vis trying to get charity for Save the Kids or whatever, and he's just absolutely tore him a new one.
Was it relaxing?
I'd love it if it was. That'd be a brilliant City reference. Anyway, I think, this normally we keep it to about an hour, but this episode is a lot longer.
Yeah,
we got into it, didn't we?
Got a bit impassioned over that project.
Got into it, didn't we? Yeah, enjoyed that. Yeah. I think the plan is, whether we do it or not is slightly different, but because we've got that midweek game next week against AFC Wimbledon at home, want to try and do some kind of reaction and preview to that maybe on Monday, so look out for that if we get around to it. If not, we'll do a combination next week, but it'd be nice to reflect on even if it's just a half-hour chat about the Rochdale game and previewing the AFC Wimbledon, depending on how they do it at the weekend.
Yeah.
And
we need to figure out how we're going to format these Saturday and Tuesdays, because we've got one coming up.
We are. We'll see how that goes. We'll take each game as it comes, I suppose. But
we are young.
Indeed.
We are learning.
Forza and all that.
Aye,
Forza
aye,
Tigers.
Forza Tigers for our listener in Italy.
Listeners, plural, I think. And then I'll keep you
Oh,
updated
really?
as to when we get more countries added to the list. But we're at 20 now, so
Come on,
Chad. We want some listeners in Chad. So until next time, Forza. See you soon.